People have to be alive to change, and that is my job, to make sure that people stay alive.
Urban centers, San Francisco and Los Angeles, that have advanced safe injection sites. You have drug counselors in many of these centers where individuals can go inject. You have access to treatment. Where are folks supposed to access treatment?
You're hearing from State Senator Mike McGuire touching on safe injection sites, the controversial topic that we will be exploring in part 3 of our special investigative report on the opioid crisis in Humboldt County. But first, you'll hear from the founder of I Like Eureka and other community members tonight who are vowing to take back Eureka.
You know, we can't tackle the world, but I figure we can at least do our part to try to make a difference.
Tonight, we're diving deeper into the problems of addiction and crime right here in Humboldt County. Members of the community flat out frustrated, vowing to face the head-on crisis and do something about it. We're hearing from community members who say enough is enough. We're talking about the drug crisis in Eureka and how it's affecting the entire community.
In part 2 of our exclusive special report on the local opioid crisis, you'll hear these community concerns about addiction, crime, violence, safety issues, and harm reduction. Take a listen.
We can only do so much.
Michelle Constantine has called Eureka home for nearly 20 years.
I love it here.
That love driving her to create a group called Take Back Eureka.
But if things continue down this path, we might consider moving. Only because as my son gets older, I don't want him to fall down the trap of open drug use.
It's a sentiment echoed throughout layers of the Humboldt County community. Judy Souza has spent countless hours researching the issues.
The waterfront is a beautiful place and Old Town can be charming, but when you see people sleeping on an old hospital gurney by the gazebo, or when you see bodily waste that needs to be picked up, or when the toilets back up because the needles have made them overflow, when you see this population that has, for all intents and purposes, given up on themselves, and they want us to help them deal with their addiction by giving them the tools to continue being addicted, it's not good for the city.
And I looked over and saw a guy pull out a needle and stick it in his arm.
The breaking point for some, this video showing what appears to be a man openly shooting up drugs near the Eureka waterfront on Mother's Day morning.
It's not working, and it's certainly not working for our community.
Jeannie Breslin founded the I Like Eureka page on Facebook. She and many others have had enough.
I got a call this morning. We have needles in our alley.
Needles found in streets and parks, places where kids play.
You cannot just try to reduce harm to a small population at the entire expense of the rest of the community.
The Humboldt County Center for Harm Reduction does operate a needle exchange. Hatcher says they do it because
we use it as the piece that you need. It's the piece that gets the people that we can't. Right? The people that everyone say is the problem, but no one can ever figure out how to reach them. Well, if you have their tools that they need, you might reach them.
Harm reduction is a failed model.
Cornelius Lowenstein says he's sick of seeing needles in front of his business in Old Town.
It's a trickling effect of poisoning us as a whole with those endless needles that fly around everywhere.
According to some community members, one part of the issue is that they say Hatcher was handing out more needles than they were taking in.
So we actually pulled back on the way that we operate, and we currently are and have been operating as an extremely rigid one-to-one.
From a Family Resource Center perspective, drugs impact everyone. They impact the whole family and the whole community.
Heidi Benzanelli runs the Jefferson Center in Eureka.
When you start asking why, why are you in this situation? What happened? You'll find out that as you get down 2, 3, 4 layers, someone in the family was suffering from drug addiction or opiate abuse.
Abuse that the Humboldt County Sheriff sees all too often.
Prescription medicine, heroin overdose is widespread in Humboldt County, and it is a very, very depressing thing when we have to deal with that over and over and over again.
So the question remains, what can be done about it?
Because I have family that doesn't live here, they see that and they're like, why do you still live there? That there's so many great things but we have to get to the root of the issue.
We as a town, we as a city, we as a county, we as a municipality have to have trailblazing pilot projects, and they have to be based on the greater benefit of the community as a whole, so harm none is the only responsible thing to do.
You just watched part 2 of our 3-part local opioid crisis miniseries, and we know that more than 2 million Americans are addicted to opioid painkillers or heroin. So given the scope, Scott, of this U.S. opioid epidemic, experts are saying any dent in this problem, even small, could be meaningful.
That's right, and that's why we're having this open dialogue tonight. And make sure you're going to want to stay tuned, though, for our last segment of this 3-part opioid crisis miniseries. We'll be hearing from local officials on possible solutions. We saw the first one, the sad stories of how people were impacted here locally. This one right here about how businesses are impacted, and then, you know, what people are doing. But what are the solutions? What can be done about it? Because that's the big question that's out there, and that's what people are trying to figure out. Follow us on Facebook. That will be next week, and we'll be updating you as well on Facebook and online. Stay with us. We're coming right back.
You're watching North Coast News on KAEF ABC 23.